converting decimals to percents and fractions.
A Mathcast by Joe and Eric.
First, let's learn a mnemonic device that can help you remember which way to move the decimal when converting a decimal to a percent. A good way to remember that when converting a decimal to a percent, you move the decimal point to the right is that Dr. Pepper rocks. Now for definitions. A fraction is a number form, such as a over b, where b is not equivalent to 0. A is the numerator and b is the denominator. A decimal is a number written using a base 10 place value system, where a decimal point separates the ones and tenths digits. A percent is a ration whose denominator is 100, with the symbol percent attached. To convert is to cause a change in function.
Here's how they convert decimals to fractions. The denominator becomes the place value of the last digits, and the numerator becomes all of the digits on the right side of the decimal point. If you're converting 85 hundredths, because 5 is in the hundredths place, 85 hundredths becomes the fraction 85 hundredths. Then all you have to do is simplify it by dividing the numerator and the denominator both by 5 to get the answer of 17/20ths.
Now let's convert decimals to percents. First, we must remember our mnemonic device, Dr. Pepper rocks. Our first example is converting 0 and 13 hundredths to a percent. Let's move the decimal point from in between the 0 and the 1 to after the 3. This creates a percentage of 13%. Now for example 2, converting 0 and 4 hundredths to a percent. To create a percent, we will move the decimal point 2 spaces to the right. This means that our decimal will turn out into 4%.
Now back to converting decimals into fractions. Our first example will be converting 2 and 65 100ths into a fraction. Since the 5 is in the hundredths place, we will create the fraction 2 and 65 over 100. We can then simplify this by dividing the numerator and the denominator both by 5. This will give you your final answer of 2 and 13/20ths.
Now let's convert decimal to percents. Our first example will be converting 0 and 25 hundredths into a percent. Let's remember our mnemonic device, Dr. Pepper rocks, which tells us that when converting decimals to percents, we move to the right. So we move the decimal point 2 spaces to the right, creating a percentage of 25%. Next, we will convert 0 and 52 thousandths into a percentage. We move the decimal point 2 spots to the right, creating a percentage of 5.2.
Now for our first story problem. Jimmy had his family over for dinner, and then he gave each of them a piece of cake. After his family received their dessert, Jimmy had 0 and 35 hundredths of his cake left. What percentage of Jimmy's cake is left? Now let's start with the original number, 0.35. If we remember Dr. Pepper rocks, we can move the decimals 2 spaces to the right, and we will have the percentage of the cake left. We will move the decimal and get a final answer of 35% of the cake was left.
This is our second story problem and final example. Lance ran 3 and 78 hundredths of a mile. What is the distance he ran as a mixed number? We can't forget to carry the 3 when we simplify and convert this number. Since the 8 is in the hundredths place, the mixed number will be 3 and 78 hundredths. We can simplify this if we divide the numerator and the denominator by 2. 78 divided by 2 is 39, and 100 divided by 2 is 50. The simplified number will be 3 and 39/50ths. This is the final answer. Lance ran 3 and 39/50ths of a mile.
When is converting decimals into fractions and percents going to be used later in life, you ask? Well, converting decimals to percents is very useful when managing bank accounts and when estimating sales tax. But in some of these situations, you'll need to instead convert percents into decimals. And when you do that, you simply reverse the direction in which you move the decimal. Instead of moving the decimal 2 spaces to the right, you move it 2 spaces to the left.
Thanks for watching.